Hello, Seachem here, my adventures in aquascaping. So today's video, I'm going to show you how I created an aquascape for my good friend Peter. I've done a couple of scapes for Peter in the past and asked us to come and rescape his tank. So we chatted back and forth on an idea, the type of scape he wanted, and he really wanted an island type scape. So the island in the middle with a nice beach front and sides. I thought this would be a useful video because it's going to show you actual stripping one tank, reusing plants, reusing substrate and reusing the stone. So I thought it'd be good to show you the whole process from stripping all the way to the finished tank, how it looks. So we're doing a bit of a step-by-step format, and I recorded some footage where I was there. So I'll just talk you through the process of how we've done that and obviously overlay the footage as I go. So the tank had been up and running for over a year, I think it was. So the first step was to remove the equipment, strip the tank, and we wanted to reuse a lot of the plants. So Peter was careful taking the plants out and we organised the plants into groups what we were going to use. Once the tank was stripped, empty, give it a good clean, ready to go. So it was a nice, clean, blank canvas, and that's the exciting part, the part where you get creative. I say this all the time, this is what I love about the hobby. The creative part. So your blank canvas, your clean tank. I love having a clean tank to start with, especially with this size tank. Even though it's only a 60 centimetre, it's actually 50 centimetres front and back and 36 high. So really good tank to escape, loads of room to escape in. If you're wondering about the livestock, the fish were kept in another room in a large plastic container with the filter running. So the fish were in a nice little temporary home till the tank was finished. On to step two. So step two was building the substrate. The aim was to have stem plants at the back. So what I've done is use some of the old substrate, put that as a base layer. And Peter already had some Seachem flourish tabs. So we crushed those up and sprinkled them over the base layer. And then finally adding a fresh layer of new soil. So that layered substrate system with the old substrate, the crushed up Seachem flourish tabs and the new soil, the idea of that is to have all that beneficial bacteria from the old substrate, but also we're just going to provide the best environment possible, have a nutrient rich substrate. So that was the idea of building that. So it was time to start the composition. Like I say, island style composition. Here I'm using Talawa wood and I use Sirius stone. Peter had all the stones off his old scape, so there was plenty of stone to work with. So I started creating the island style scape using the Talawa wood, and Peter had asked us to have some of the wood above the water surface, so that was important to him. So I tried to create something that looked natural, pleasing to the eye, and having that immersed wood. So I think there was 3 pieces altogether, so I tried to create something that looked natural and pleasing to the eye. When doing an islandscape, you've got a mound of soil, and obviously you want to keep that back from the sand. One little thing you can do using your stone, particularly the larger pieces, if you grab the stone and just like push it against the soil to keep that soil back rather than just sitting it in front. That's a little tip I got from a workshop at Horizon Aquatics. Tommy from Green Aqua was his workshop, and that's a tip he had getting off someone else. So try to use the stone and the wood together to make it look natural and also create that barrier. So just kept on going with that to try and get that island look without it look like in a total half circle, if you know what I mean. You want it a bit more natural, so the stones are offset, they're not in a perfect circle like a rock garden sort of thing. You want to keep away from doing that. So make it look natural by offsetting the stones, using different sizes of stones, that sort of thing. After the initial hardscape was done and Peter was happy with the hardscape, obviously we'll keep looking and getting feedback of each other, making little tweaks while we're watching it. Because sometimes those little tweaks, little tiny adjustments makes all the difference. It's amazing, but it really does. So it's worth doing that and taking your time with the hardscape. Once that was done, we wanted to take some further measures to make sure everything was secure and to make sure the soil wasn't going to spill into the sand. So what we've done there is filling all the gaps underneath, in between, with filter floss. That's a little tip, you can just push that in and that's going to hold that soil back. If you can see bits, don't worry too much about that because that's going to get covered with gravel or sand, etc. So I wouldn't worry too much if you can see it when you're initially using those bits of filter floss in gaps. And to secure the wood to the stone, using the method you'll see in most of my videos, loads of scapers use this method now. It's using a liquid type glue with tissue paper, toilet paper. What you do, you just squeeze that into place between the wood and the stone, and once you add that glue, it kind of reacts and gives like an epoxy, so that keeps it really secure. Especially if you put it in a good few points, you're best off go overboard with it. Wherever you can secure the wood and the stone using this method, I would do that. And it's much easier for maintenance as well, because during maintenance you don't want to be knocking wood loose and that sort of thing. So it's a really handy thing to do, securing the wood as best you can. Not just to stop it floating, but to make maintenance easier when it comes to that. Speaking of maintenance, whenever you're creating an aquascape, it is important to bear maintenance in mind. So when you're doing it, you don't want wood, stone, touching the glass, especially at the front. You don't want too much of that, otherwise it's going to make maintenance a nightmare. So just be wary of that. Obviously it's okay, sometimes you can't help it, little bits of wood touching sides of the glass, that sort of thing. That's okay, you can get around that, but the more room you've got between the glass and the hardscape, much easier for maintenance, and it's much easier doing it during the dry hardscape process and trying to fix it once everything's up and running and full. So again, another little tip there, hope you find useful. A little word on rule of thirds. People always ask us that about rule of thirds. Your main pieces, large pieces of rock, large pieces of wood, and a focal point. You don't want a dead center. That's the only way to avoid. You don't have to go exactly with the rule of thirds. Although I must confess, when I first started aquascaping, I did used to measure. So it was exactly with the rule of thirds. But what I would say, don't worry too much about that. As long as you put your main piece of hardscape or larger stones slightly left or slightly right. I've done that in the past where I've got a stone, quite a large stone, bang in the middle, and I haven't noticed till later, and it really gets under my skin. I can just focus on that. So by simply shifting that left or right, it makes all the difference. It's just to the eye, it's the way the human eye works. Things look a lot more natural if you place those left or right. So just bear that in mind when you're creating your aquascape as well. But don't get too obsessed with the rule of thirds. It doesn't have to be exact. That's what I always follow. Slightly left, slightly right. Hardscape complete. I was really happy with this hardscape, in all honesty. I thought it looked brilliant. I really did like this one, and I was a bit jealous it wasn't mine at home. But that happens all the time. If I do a client scape, I think, oh, I wish this was at home. But I suppose that's a good thing. Obviously I do things to the best of my ability and try and create something as best as possible. You might watch my channel or see some of my content on Instagram and think, he's always using Talawa wood, he's always using serious stone. And there's a good reason for that, especially for clientscapes. I don't like to go too experimental on clientscapes, because at the end of the day, they just want a nice aquascape. They didn't feel confident enough to do it themselves, so that's why they've got me. And just mine's with experience and practice, and obviously I love what I do. So I digressed a bit there. Yeah, what I was saying is I don't want to try and be all creative and different when I'm doing a clientscape. You just want something that's nice they can enjoy in their home. So I use materials I know work really well and are quite easy to work with. So I can do something quick and efficient, but looks the business. And to me, Talawa wood and Serious stone, that's not the only ones, but Serious stone and Talawa wood are favourites of mine, easy to work with, and I think they look amazing. And Talawa wood is one of the most inexpensive ones, so it's good for that reason as well when people are on a tight budget. So that's why I tend to use those woods and those stones a lot, because they look the biz and I don't have to get too fancy. If a client asks us, yeah, I want you to come and do a total off the wall aquascape, yeah, maybe I would, but in general people want something, just a nice aquarium to look at and enjoy at home. On to step 4, planting. So the hardscape was complete. We were both really happy with how it was looking, so it was time to plant. The majority of the plants, actually I think all the plants, we already had. So we prepared those, using the stem plants to plant in the background. So talking to Peter, I thought, why don't we go for mixed stems? Don't have them all organised and you don't have to worry about really neat trimming. Because his other scape is really tight, compact stems in groups, and it's gorgeous. He didn't want all the hassle of trimming and keeping it really neat. So I says, well, we can still use stems, because stems have got the uses, you've got the nice colours, and also they grow that quick. Excellent for taking up those excess nutrients. So that's a good reason for using stems in the aquarium. So we'll still use the stems, but we'll mix them. Just planting them randomly and just let them go and let them compete with each other, sort of thing. So we used plants like Pagostum and Decanthus. We had Rotella, HRR, and various other stem plants. So we're just planting them random. And the idea was to just let them go and see how they looked, growing wild and mixed. Some of the smaller gaps in the mid-ground sort of thing were placed Blixa japonica, and then lots of epiphytes. So epiphytes are plants that attach to wood and stone. We used Anubias petite. We had different Bucephalandra species. There was trident fern, I think, narrowleaf fern. I think it was narrowleaf fern. And what else did we have? On Bulbitis. Although I think Bulbitis was later removed because I don't think Peter was feeling the Bulbitis. When I'm using epiphyte plants, like I say, plants that attach to wood and stone, I try to fill as many gaps as possible before using any glue. I just think this is more natural and easy. So look for any gaps and just push the Anubias and the ferns into those little gaps. Obviously, if there's no gaps left and there's an area you want to put some of those plants, you can just use a little bit of gel type glue. I always get a lot of questions about Anubias, and I think this is the case with most Anubias species. I would always put them low out of the light because they're the plants that have a tendency to get in dark green spot algae, which isn't the prettiest. It kind of spoils the look of the plant, so I always keep that shaded. What I tend to do is have like a canopy plant, I call it, above it, so like something like a trident fern, which will sweep over it, but you can just see the details of the Anubias still, and you can obviously trim that fern back so you can still see Anubias, but it's shaded. So Anubias does really well in shade, hardly needs any light. So that's a good tip with that. Because a lot of times when I've seen people say, I've got loads of green spot algae, I don't like Anubias because it gets loads of algae. They'll find they've got a place in the tank where it's getting far too much light, and that is an issue with Anubias. So keep it shaded, nice little areas, usually on the base of your actual hardscape, and it does great, in my experience. Once the planting was done, and we did use a fair amount of plants, so that was great in the initial setup, using plenty of plants. Like I say, you've got all them stems in there off his previous scape, which are just going to go crazy, grow, take up them excess nutrients, and preventing any algae issues. That's the plan. So once that was done, I think we set up the equipment first, so we started filling while setting the equipment up. And I'll just run through the equipment Peter was using on his tank. For the lighting, it was the Chihiros WRGB, I believe. So the 60 centimeter one. So that's the light used. The tank was an Evolution Aqua 600, which is 60 centimeters long, 50 centimeters front to back, 36 centimeters in height. So really good depth of tank. So that's sitting on the cabinet it actually comes with, which is the Evolution Aqua cabinet. It's Evolution Aqua, I believe now it's D&D who took it over. So if you're looking for that type of tank, that type of cabinet, D&D is what you want to look for. Filtration is the Awase Biomaster Thermal 350. If you watch my videos, that's the only filters I use. That's the filters I recommend a lot for external filters anyways. Brilliant external filter. This particular Aquascape is running CO2. It's a CO2 art regulator with inline diffuser. The pipe set is acrylic pipe set from Aqua Rio. So that's a rundown of the equipment used on this scape. Fish wise, lovely community of fish Peter's got. So like I was saying earlier in the video, we had put them aside in a large container with the Awase filter running. So that filter went straight back on, we filled, got the filter up and running, and a couple hours later added the fish. And the fish straight away were fine, no issues at all. Peter didn't lose any fish, and that media had been running for well over a year, so that's why the fish went straight in. So as I was saying, a lovely community of fish. There was some panda cories in there, and I believe Peter was going to get some more, so having a nice school of panda corridoras. That's another reason why there was a large sand area for the corries. It makes that will encourage the corries to be out more, and they love obviously scrummaging against the sand. Panda corries are gorgeous little fish, right little characters, so they suited this aquascape perfectly. Look great. There's some ember tetras in there, one of my personal faves. Love ember tetras. Another Chiros light. They're a lovely dark bright orange, stunning little fish. And a fish I've never had, and I must admit I'm not a huge fan of, but they are stunning. I don't know, they're just not for me. But Galaxy Rasboras. But I must say the ones Peter had in there, wow, gorgeous colours. So that's some of the fish in there, and they really suited the scape as soon as I got them in. Nice community of small fish. If you're new to Aquascape and you've been watching videos, you'll notice Aquascape has used small schooling fish, and that's to create a better sense of scale with the Aquascape. You don't want fish that are too large to take away the scale. That's the main reason you use it. And obviously the smaller fish as well. With a heavily planted tank, it's an ideal environment for those fish. So yeah, I think the fish love a heavily planted tank. So that's it for Peter's tank. One of my favourites. I really enjoyed doing it. We had a great day doing it. A busy day with me videoing and doing the scape. It was quite busy. Actually, we might have done it over 2 days. I think I came back the day after the planting stuff. You can't remember. It wasn't even that long ago. Memory, no good. So that's it for this video, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have done, please give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, see you later.